Yeah, thanks, Alison. So yeah, I think it was a couple of months ago. I think Dave Beck, who's not here today, but he shared an article on the new trials in Belgium on social security for food that Jonathan had been working on, and it just got a good conversation going on our listserv, and I thought it'd be really good for us to hear from Jonathan in person about what these trials look like, what it means, and just tell us more about this concept of social security for food. So Jonathan and I had a Zoom call, I think probably last month or the month before, and yeah, I was delighted that he was able to come along and tell us more about it. And I'm hoping as well that I'll visit Belgium in September to do basically the sort of visit I've just done on the West Coast and Vancouver, to do a bit of exploration of what's going on in Belgium in terms of food insecurity. So yeah, over to you, Jonathan, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you a lot for the invitation. I'm very glad to speak to you about that project, because it's a very French-Belgium-based project, and it's good for us to enlarge the audience and to speak to you. So I was thinking it was more English-based, but I see that there is a lot of American too. So maybe a word about myself. I'm working for FIAN, and I'm very happy to hear that maybe there will be soon a FIAN USA section. I'm working for FIAN since 3 years now, and FIAN is an NGO defending, promoting the right to food worldwide, let's say, but I'm working for the Belgium section, so our goal is to implement the human right to food in Belgium. And historically, we worked more in the support of agricultural farmers and food sovereignty as a political horizon. If you see what is it, like the question of access to farmland, the question of pesticide, model of farming, trade, for example. And now since 3-4 years, FIAN decided to have a closer look to this question of access to food. So taking into account the question of people in poverty, the question of price, the question of what is it that the people can buy or not. And in that, that was my goal. I mean, in the organization when I arrived here. And at that day, some people in France, they were speaking about a system, that social security for food system. And it is, there is two aspects. I don't remember if yes. The first one is really to discuss and to try to put together around the same table people from all the food system, but first people in poverty and the producers, the farmers. This is something that is not new, let's say, because a lot of people are trying to do so since years, but I've noticed that this proposal is really going to allow that discussion, because it's an instrument to do that. It's an instrument in the common interest of a lot of people. So it's not the same thing to say, please come to the table. We want to hear you about agriculture, or we want to hear you about poverty. It's here we are building together a tool that is going to help everyone, but mainly that two category of people, to emancipate themselves and to have a strong public policy that would realize the right to food, increase their income, go on a more sustainable food system. So the discussion is the first part. And even if the second part, I mean, the real institution will never happen, to have such a discussion about what is food and who is concerned by food and how we can build together a food system is already something that is occurring. And it's very important to stress it. But still, secondly, we are really wanting something, and we are asking it. And to make it very short, we call it a branch of social security. I know it's something very specific to our countries, because it's not the same in every country, and I really don't know how it's working in the USA or in the UK. But I will explain later how it's working here. There is three objectives. The first one is to give 150 euro, not a food budget for everyone. This is more the objectives, I mean the vision. We are not asking that amount of money for tomorrow. It will be progressive, but that is what we are looking for. Secondly, we are building an indirect funding for the transition of agricultural and processing systems. And this is very important because here in Europe, I think the same for in the US also, but food is really a market, a commodity. And it's very hard to have some political impact on food due to the marketplace. The state has delegated all this power to companies, let's say, and even if you want to do something, it's very hard to go beyond the narrative of the market. What will the consumers and what are selling the company, and it's very hard to get rid of that. If you give 150 euro each month to every adult in Belgium, that's a lot of money. More or less, it's 20 billion euro for a year, and it gives you a real weight in shaping the food market and shaping the food system in general. And this is what is lacking now, because there is sometimes we have also, of course, many regulations, and we could theoretically be able to influence them, but actually we are not able to do it for many complex reasons, but mainly the weight of the agro-industry, the lobby, and the statu quo around the balance of power within the food system. So we are not really gaining or any, let's say, significant gain. And the third objective is to repoliticize the issue of the food control, and that was what I was saying before. We want to have money for everyone. We want to have economical weight, and we want to have a democratic discussion around what is food and what we should produce in our country and how. And this is not something that is happened for now. So this is the objectives. Now I will try to not be too long, but we base our proposal on 4 observations. The first one is the increase in food poverty, and it's long since before 2000. So you can see on the graph that's the number of people that was asking to or demanding food aid in Belgium. Only one part of food aid, because for the food aid you have the very formal one, which with good counting and good statistics, but you have also the informal sectors, and altogether it is estimated by people that people you don't know that it's more or less 600,000 people that have been asking for food aid last year, because the increase has been like huge due to inflation, Ukrainian war, and the COVID. And each year we have these increases, and it's now alarming because it's more or less 5% of the population in Belgium. Is not maybe the 1 or 2% that we could expect, the number of people that we could expect to be received in good condition by food aid is more than that. And now food aid is growing and is going to be maybe the structural answer to the food precarity in Belgium. And for us, this is not acceptable, because food aid is not at all the right to food. It just provides you food, but not in dignity most of the time. You give, but you cannot give back. So there is no balance of power, and it's generating a lot of exclusion. So I don't want to be too long on that. If you look strictly to the right to food, it's not the right the right to be fed, but it's not the right to an access to a good food. The second thing is that food is not just a question of poverty; it's also a question of malnutrition for the general population. And here I think the situation is even worse in the US or in the UK. The number of people that are underweight or obese are a practical, objective way for measuring that, the malnutrition, but it's only one possibility. And we have a pretty good study on that. Here you can see two things on the graphics. The first one is the number of people. Overweight is surpoids. So you have 60% of the population without diploma or with a very low diploma that is overweight, and you have 40% for the people who have a diploma for the university, I mean tertiary. And for obesity, it's 20%, for more than 40%, and less than 15%. So what is important is there is this social gradient. So the poorer you are, the more chance you have to be unhealthy due to the food. But also the numbers are very high. And even if you're rich and very well educated, you are very, you can have a lot of problem with malnutrition. And here we have this number in Europe, only 12% of the population that eat the nutritional recommendation for fruit and vegetables, which is very low, and 40% of the population that don't even eat one vegetable on average a day. So this generates chronic diseases and also a lot of deaths, and 40%, it's estimated by OCDE, which is more or less the same thing as for the cigarette. And for the tobacco, there is a lot of regulation, a lot of involvement of the public services. For the malnutrition, I mean for the, how you say, the junk food, you have almost no regulation on that. So it's a good comparison because on the health system, that's the same weight. Okay, I think I will skip that one. There is also this idea that one very important narrative about the market and the fact that food is a commodity is that there is on the market a lot of organic food, a lot of good food, lots of quality food from local market, etc. And the narrative is say, but people are not buying it. And they are not buying it, so why should the companies change their offer if people are not buying it? And to her, this is something very important to hear. And we say people are not buying it because it's not competitive. The best price on food are the food products that are bad for health, bad for environment, based on worker exploitation, very low wages, and which are subsidized mainly, in the majority. So at the end, the prices are, what do you say? The prices are wrong, let's say. They are not reflecting the real costs of the food. And we have some estimation for Belgium, for example. Overweight and obesity, it costs 5 billion euro a year in Belgium to the health system. It's a lot because if you want a comparison, the food market, all the expenditure by people in Belgium, it's more or less 25 billion euro a year, which is more or less a quarter of that. Also for environment, it is very well known, but the food system has a very huge impact on climate change, maybe more than 50% of the emission of gas, on deforestation, on the use of drinkable water. We don't have numbers, economic numbers for Belgium, but at the international level, it's often considered that it's the same as for health. So it could be maybe 5 billion euro a year, which are used by the public states to reimburse pollution, etc. And then peasant farm workers. Here in Europe, we are a lot of people that come from countries around Europe, from Eastern Europe or South Europe, which is not Europe, but more North Africa. And they can come here and they can work for very dangerous jobs for very low wages. And this is the way the companies are providing very low price food. And the subsidies, I know also that the US system is very subsidized, but here we have the CAP, the common agricultural policies, and which is going mainly to very big and large farms that are not producing fresh foods, but more cereals and meat. So at the end, it's the price are really not in favor of the society. And I think we can say that the food system is really not a profitable system for the whole society. It profits to some companies, but if we take it on a global panorama with the global glasses, actually it costs much more to the state and to the people and to the society that it done. If we had good prices, which would include which would not damage too much health, not damage too much environment, or give good wages to workers and farmers, the prices will be very different. And they will be actually the same prices that we find for organic food or just food, which is existing in Europe, but on a very small amount. It's very marginal. So we can say that not the quality of food that is too expensive, that is conventional food that is not expensive enough. But if we have the narrative of the market, consumers, they will of course choose their choice are based on price mainly, and if the price are lying, so they do very bad choice. And it's something to be changed. And something, the fourth finding or observation is about all these small alternatives that exist, and we have a lot of organic buying local, some small cooperatives that are doing a great job here and are providing very good food to people. But which people? Not so much people. It's not more than 5% of the food market that is organic in Europe, and I think it's one of the more significant market of organic food in the world. They are very small, and we can use the concept of dualization. There is, for some people, we have the money, we have the willing to buy food, we have who have the time to do it. There is some good food, but for the vast majority, there is only bad food. And these small alternatives are, in fact, the trees that are hiding the forest, if you can say it in English. It's a bit real. It's just to pretend that this good food is available, but actually it's available to only a very restricted part of the population. And this is something we are also denouncing, because this discourse, they will never be competitive, let's say, and they will never be chosen by consumers, not because they are not effective or something like that, but just because the prices are so wrong that consumers cannot go on that choices unless they are kind of a martyr or political with a strong political will, which happen, but is not generalizable to the whole population. This was not translated, so now I finish with the observation, and this lead to sorry, I forgot to translate that one, but it's an important one, so I will translate it like that. These four observations lead us to four conclusions. The first one is we cannot ask the producers to be more efficient, and we can not ask the poor people to pay more expensive food. The common food is not expensive enough.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oops, sorry. Yes, and in general, there is a big interest to adopt these global glasses. Why? Because now, as we still we still in silo, like, we have the administration for agriculture, one for health, one for environment, one for social aid. But the gain to have a change in the social system is very significant if you take everything at once. But if you have a reasoning silo by silo, you cannot really find enough money to finance the change of the food system. And to adopt this systemic view is meaning we also need systemic policies. And this is why also I think this social security for food is important, because that's the only proposal I know. I mean, that we can imagine a lot of many more maybe, but that's the only one I know that is with such detail that is systemic by your own. And this makes it, I think, interesting. Here I will explain you how it works. It's based on three pillars, which are common to all the the social security. So social security in Europe, Belgium and France in particular, they take care of your pension scheme, they take care of your right to health, they finance all the health system, they finance the unemployment scheme, or maybe also the holidays and the family allocation. So, and they all work on the same system. And here we are trying to adopt this functioning to some specificity of food. So first pillar is everyone contributes in proportion to their income to a common fund. So there is two ways for providing money in that fund: a direct contribution of workers, and this is how it's work for now. More or less 20% of our salary go on we call it indirect salary. So it goes on public, on this as a social security, on public institution, and it's financing the thing I said before. You also have a contribution of employers, I mean of capital, let's say, and we also have a contribution of state. And the state, of course, finds money through imposition, through taxation. So we are asking the state to do special taxation on food for that. And we are asking workers and employers to increase their contribution under this indirect salary. This is why it's not an easy task. We need a strong political alliance to have such a demand, but that's the condition for having a systemic policy. The second pillar is a universal redistribution. So food for us is a right. It's not something that you can have with a social aid. There is no policy for the poor and a policy for the rich, and most of the time a policy for the poor and no policy for the rich. Here, everyone will receive 150 euro a month on a card, on really a plastic card like a bank card. And when you go to pay on a supermarket or a shop or in a farm, you just take your card, you show it, and you pay with that. There is no stigmatization, there is no differentiation. Everyone has a card. It's not a card that only the poor people have, or something like that. You are really anonymous when you're paying. There is no social distinction. And this makes it very important. Something I forgot to make it very clear, that the first pillar, it's a strong way for reducing inequalities, because the contribution to the fund is proportional to your income. If you have a salary of 5,000 euro or dollars, you are contributing much more than people that have 1,000 or 2,000 euro a month. So at the end, of course, the rich people are going to provide more money on that and create less inequalities. So this is in French, but it's mainly in Arabs, Arab numbers, so we can all understand. That's the amount of money that is needed to give a certain amount of money each month. So K1, K is case 1, case 2, case 3. The first line is the money people will receive each month. So if you take case 1, every adult and children actually here will receive 50 euro a month for buying, I will tell you later, but specific food. And it will cost more or less 7 billion euro a year. Cost of gestion is, for managing the fund is 3%. So social security is very efficient compared to food aid, for example, because it's a very large scale. And you have that's the money we have to demand to the workers to increase their contribution. So 3%, more or less 4%. So of course, the more money you give to people each month, the more money you need to find to finance it. But something I want to say about that, the money is not going anywhere. I mean, people with an income in the average will give 150 euro and will receive 150 euro. If you are in the average, if you are poor people, you will give less and receive 150, and if richer, you will give more and receive that money. So the money is not going anywhere, but still on the state. The thing is that we give a conditionality to the money, to the allocation. And yeah, you have the several cases. And I mean, for Belgium, it's a lot of money. 20 billion euro is not so much if we compare to US budget on Ukraine. I say that for for kidding, but it's lots of money. It's more or less the amount of the social security for health. And the third pillar is conditionality, or here it's say conventional products. That's the fact that with the money you cannot buy everything you want. You can buy only food first, and food that will be designated, and we will follow some criteria. And the criteria we are now asking for are, the first one is sustainability, so mainly maybe organic foods, I mean due to damage on environment. Then it's really just prices, including just remuneration for the producers, which are very low nowadays. And the third one is to try to avoid an international food market and to really go more on short chain without, yes, well, to be short, that's the three criteria. And the proposal is also to discuss these criteria on with principle of food democracy, which is something very hard to elaborate in practical. But we have in Belgium Food Policy Council. I think you also have in the US. And this council will be the one that will be able to give advice to the regional bodies that will be make a kind of administration that will administrate, manage the conventional products and the conditionality. I skip that. And maybe just before to conclude, so I finished the presentation of the proposal. And now we have been building since 3 years a collective. We have a new logo, so I'm very proud to show it to you. And we have a website also with all the resources in French. I was not, yeah, maybe it will be some in English, but we will also do it first in Flemish, because in Belgium is dual countries. So we are trying to go international, but still it's mainly in French for now. What is important is we have a lot of organization, and we have general election in Belgium next year. And so we are trying to really put the proposal agenda of political parties and of the campaign. And now we are having our first return on investment, and because three parties already said that they are interested in doing it. And Belgium is very, you need the coalition. There is lots of political parties, and they need to make coalition. And so maybe now we didn't know 6 months ago it was possible, but now we know that, let's say, significant party say they are interested in it. So maybe in 1 year it will be, we will have something, not the 150 euro, of course, but something progressive, maybe the first step. That's what we hope and try to build on. So maybe I will stop here. Just one thing I could have said is that is mainly on the BBC article. We also have pilot projects, so very experiments that are occurring in Belgium and France. We can discuss it more if you want.
Great.
Later also.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's really fascinating. And what if you can stop sharing the screen now, and we will move to questions and conversation. And I do have a question from Jan in the chat. To start with, would people be permitted to purchase food beyond the amount on their cards? And by that, I believe she means that if from your own money, right? So can you, within the same store, within the same, could you purchase more than 150 pounds?
Yeah,
worth?
so you cannot. We're not very clear on that, but we think that we are not going to allow X months of accumulation. So if you don't use your money the first month, for example, maybe you can still have the second one or the third one, but we're not going to maybe allow more than 500 euro on the card. So on that way, you can go beyond the money, but you will need another card, more classical card to buy other food.
And then another question is about, do you have any, is there demographic data on who this rise from 70,000 to 600,000 individuals that are 5% of the population in Belgium? And that's a huge shift. Is there demographic data about, that describes sort of who those people are? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure to understand, but I think the money is really for all Belgium and to all adults, and maybe the half of the allocation for the children. So there is no distinction; it's for everyone. But
no, I mean in terms of the population that is part of this 5%. Is
yes.
What do we know about that population of people? Is it mostly children? Is it, what's the demographic?
Okay, yes, I understand. Yes, we know. I'm not the best one to know it, but what I know is that there was also a change. First, it was people that most of the time lose their job and have some catastrophic, situation, because food aid is really where you go when you have nothing else. When you cannot food yourself, is that meaning you are in very, very big trouble. And that's a way for also identifying the people and providing with the food also some social services, sometimes, discussion and help and etc. You have that kind of people, maybe 1-2% of that in very extreme poverty, and people that are not easy to help. But you also have, the augmentation of the people are really new people, which are not in extreme poverty, but are in poverty. You can have workers, they work, but still their salary is not enough. You can have students. You can have monoparental, when you have one mother most of the time that's taking care of many kids. That's kind of public. You also have more migrants in the food aid than in the general population. And you also have a last category, which is interesting and kind of new, which are very old people who don't have enough pension. The pension is not enough to really live in a proper condition.
Right. Thank you. Are there other folks want to questions or ideas, or what's this sparking for you? Josh?
Hi, Jonathan. Great presentation. A lot of similar thinking about how we use economies of scale to do food system transformation in the United States through which is nutrition incentive programs from the SNAP program. So our largest Social Security program is already a food-based program, but it's exclusively for the poor. And there are many groups that are trying to incentivize local food economies using this SNAP by like doubling or even tripling the dollars at farmers markets and these kinds of things. The problem is that the funding for it is very minimal. The partner needs to often bring their own private money to make it work. But another problem is also access to the sites for low-income families. So accessing the place where the farmer's market is, or in my question here is, I love the idea, but you talked about $20 billion or or 20 billion euros.
Mhm.
How do you then ramp up the production of local, regional, Belgian produced foods for 20 billion so fast?
Yeah.
And what is the conversation between consumption and production that is happening? How long of a timeline do you imagine this being rolled out? And does it also need like the producer support beyond just the consumption dollars? Because a producer will need a lot of capital to get going in organic production practices and these kinds of things. So these are the many questions that I have, but I love that you are trying this, and I love that statement about repoliticizing food, and that you are actually getting it into your next election cycle campaign. Is wonderful.
Yes, thanks. It's a very good question. We call it progressivity. I would love to share with you a clear roadmap, but we don't have it. We are still. I mean, that's the next step we need to do in the next months, to have some clear steps to go on that. Clearly, if we have the money, I mean, if they want to do it, I mean, political parties next election, they say, okay, we do it. There is not offer at all. There is no production at all to do that. For now, we could. I mean, for the organic production, which is maybe the most strong, solid statistic we have, it's 1 billion euro a year compared to the 20 we need. And this is our reference to say that we could ask, we could start by doubling that. People are already consuming 1 billion euro. So we would say the first year we give 1 billion euro more. And it will, on the very short term, it's very hard to say. We are asking some economists to calculate that. You can increase importation, exportation, this kind of thing. But the important for us is to find the good numbers that will allow producers, transformers, distribution to be confident in the future, and to say, to think that they know they will have people buying their production in the next years. And so maybe the next year they can double it, and the year after they can also double it, or something like that. There is very huge potential of growth on this sector, but the problem is not really from production now, but it's really from consumers. As consumers are not choosing that product for the reason I gave before, for them it's very hard to say, I'm going to invest on a 5-year basis, especially due to COVID, because with the COVID, there was a lot of changes on the food consumers' habits. And for them, I mean, small producers, right now it's impossible to invest because I don't know what will happen. There is one month they say it's a reduction, the month later it's a growth of consumption. They really don't know. Even organic food, which was very dynamic, has been declining during the COVID. So for them, it's very hard to see it on a very long term. But still, as a society, I think we need a very long term to go on a sustainable food system. And if we rely on that producers, people, we need to offer them stability, and that's what the system want to do. So we don't have the precise number, but yes, referencing on this organic production, we will, I think, follow that thing, because we want the three criteria of organic, but also of fair price. And for fair price, I don't have the number, but there is a lot of food that is non-fair price. I mean, non-organic, but still fair price, or organic, which is not fair price. First, we really wanted to have the accumulation of the three criteria, but now we are also maybe saying, maybe if there is one of these criteria on the product, maybe it's enough on the first steps to allow also producers and the offer to adapt also.
Yes, thank you.
It's Graham here.
Yes, go ahead, Dan.
Is that for me?
Yes, go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I totally understand, but I kind of like the idea of sort of universal programs. I mean, you began, Jonathan, I think, by talking about an increase in food poverty in Belgium, which I think you probably find in most, if not all, other countries at the moment. What interests me about it is how will the scheme, the social security for food, relate to poverty reduction? I mean, what kind of role would it play in this? What kind of outcomes do you see occurring, and how will you be measuring this? What are the measures to indicate that you're being successful, that the program will be successful? Is that something that you have in mind? That's one question. The other question that I have, I mean, I've got different questions, but I'm trying to get my head around it, is where do you think the significant opposition will come from to the scheme? I mean, who will be, you know, because if you talk about the indestructibility of the agro-industrial food system, I think sort of we're all aware that's a pretty significant, you know, international, global power to take on. So I'm kind of interested in those two questions. How are you going to be measuring poverty reduction in terms of the scheme that you're putting forward, and where do you expect the significant opposition to come from in Belgium, sort of initially? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yes, measuring the reduction of poverty is not an easy task. I think I want to say two things, because on a very general matters, I think we expect that lots of people, there will be a reduction on the people accessing to food aid, for example. Because if you have 150 euro a month, you could avoid for a lot of people going to the food aid. So we expect a reduction there. We expect also, which is maybe not really linked to poverty, but an increase of the food consumption, I mean good food consumption, and an increase of the investment in the food system. But we have, I was telling at the end of a pilot project, and we have one in Brussels here. It's not really what, it was one of the subjects of the BBC radio article. It's something, of course, a lot smaller than what I was presenting here. It's 60 persons that are from social assistance that are getting 150 euro a month to buy their food only in a supermarket, a cooperative supermarket that is selling only quality food, let's say. And what we see is that people first are very happy to buy that food. Most of them say that they would love to buy organic food, but they cannot even think about it, because thinking about it is like inflicting a suffering. They know they cannot afford it, so they cannot even think about that. If you give that money, they can access to shops and products they were not accessing before, and that's something very important, because as people in poverty, they are, let's say, evolving, or living in dignity, because with that money they have the same consumption habits as everyone in the supermarket, and this is something very strong for them on a psychological scale. Also, but this is very linked to that pilot project. They are going out. When you go on supermarket, normal supermarket, you don't speak to anyone, I think. I mean, in Belgium at least. You do your shop, you take your product, and you have a smile on the girl, and you go out home. Here, as it's a cooperative, and in most of the alternative on food systems that it's working like that, you have a lot of social links, social relation within the supermarket, and they are very, very happy to have these links. And they are not isolated anymore. And that was one of the goal of that project, to really help people to go out and find new people. And when we say, what do you think about that project? Do you like it or not? They all answer not really about the quality of the food. They do, of course. But the most interesting thing to them is really to meet new people and to share a moment with people of very different social class. And they will say, oh, I was doing my shopping with, one said, airplane pilots, or with a lawyer, you know, an attorney, these kind of things. So you can meet people you will never meet. And that was for them very strong. And I think it's very hard to measure, but for us as a qualitative measure, let's say it's very strong, and that's the strongest data we have, these testimonies of people. And of course, maybe I can add, because Joshua also asked me to, that there is on that project, there is a lot of money also to accompany the people, you know, to welcome them, to help them to make their choice, to explain them how it's working. So when they have understood, it's okay. And as it's a cooperative, you also have this kind of scheme, but this is very demanding, because the money don't give you the change in habits. So you have to change your food basket, and this is easy because people want to have more quality, but you also have to change your habits, because they don't go, for example, in such a supermarket. And for them, that was not easy. So there is extra money to provide that, I don't know, welcoming, you know.
Sure. How do you think that the food banks in Belgium will be responding to this? Because food banks today, sort of globally, are very strong in promoting the argument that really their project, I don't know whether it's so much now about feeding hungry people, but it's actually about food waste. And actually it's, you know, that's a sort of a key argument. I mean, I'm just sort of thinking of these complexities in the food charity economy in terms of how it will play out. That was sort of, in one sense, behind my question, in terms of sort of who's going to be opposing this, who's going to be indicating that this isn't the way to go.
Yes, that's how I met with Kayles. I mean, this letter we signed on food bank, and the situation is the same in Belgium as I think in many countries. But here, due to the COVID and the recent crisis, there is a lack of food products on the food banks.
Right.
So they don't have enough. So that's the first thing.
Yeah, they've never had enough, mind you. If you go back 40 years, they've never had enough. You know? Okay.
Okay. But so they don't have enough, and they are looking for other sources, let's say. Yeah. And some people in the so here it's not all the food banks. I mean, the general food banks, the conversation with them is very difficult, but still they ask for interviews, and I think it's going on. But I just forgot what I wanted to say. No, there is also a lot of people that are considering that the food aid is something that to be restricted to very urgent situation. You can have access for 3 or 6 months, but then you have to do something else and give your place to someone else. And here, this is something that is happening less and less. And in that project pilot, we say project pilot or pilot project? Pilot project.
Yeah.
The people that are going to supermarket are people that were before as a food aid, but that have been selected because they were, let's say, able, because sometimes you are not also able, or it's too complicated, but they were able to do something more complex and something better for them. It was a way for you know, letting them place to other people, and to don't really stay and be stuck on food aid, but to go beyond that. and we will see if this happen. But that could be a scale. You have nothing, then you go to food aid, but a few months later you can have this stamp and you go on this food or this social security for food or new places. This is not what I was defending before with a very systemic institution, but when we were speaking about steps or realistic things to do, that could be maybe one of the next steps to give people in precarity, but not the extreme precarity, but people that are able to live that just like the money. So that could be a way.
I have a couple of questions, but I want to ask Ian and is it Maria? If you have anything in particular that you want to.
No questions or comments in particular, but it's been really interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I have a question. So this fund, if I understand it, is directed to those in the deepest level of poverty. So if I understand, so 100, I mean, how did you come up with 150 euros? Because I think ideally what we're wanting to do here is bring everyone up to a minimum above the poverty line. Does this 150, how is that number arrived at?
Yes.
Does it meet sort of certain measurement in terms of like a nutritious amount of food? Is it enough to get there? Because in Canada, it wouldn't be enough. People would need more. I'm not sure exactly what the euro to Canadian dollar is, but I don't think it's enough to bring people to even a nutritious market basket. Follow me? Do you follow me?
Yes, it's a good question. Yes, just
and then I have a second question. Oh, go ahead.
No, as you want.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So so Joshua was saying in the chat, but yes, it's only in a pilot project that are going to poor people because it's maybe the first step. But the idea is ready to go on universal to everyone. I mean. And about the numbers, it's calculated. It's €5 a day, and it has maybe three meanings. First, that's the half of the average consumption for one person. So one person in Belgium, it's spending 300 euro a month on its food. So that's the minimum. That's not the minimum. That's the half. This also meaning that the half of the food budget will still, even if we have the complete conversion of the food social security for food, the half will remain as it is now. So based on international market food system, it could be nutritious or not and sustainable or not. That's the only, which is a lot, but that's the half. Second, that's more or less, that's a big more than what people in very extreme precarity are using. Most of the time they use 100 euro a month. That means the very poor people. So 150 is for them is really significant. Maybe it's not enough, but it's something that really makes a difference for accessing food for them. And that was the first thing, but yeah, and it's also calculated not in absolute, but also in experience with people, association and people, communities working around food. The idea is not, yes, so for the people in poverty, but the idea for people in with a normal budget is that that will pay the difference between the bad food and the good food. That pays the difference. So you can still have your 300 euro a month on food, but with that you are able to buy it as a good food, on sustainable food. So that's the free meaning of that number. The number was a bit before the inflation and on the crisis. Of course, it must be adapted. But yes, I think the half of the consumption is a good way to and a short way, simple way to see what is the difference with Canada, for example.
Thank you.
Haley, your hand is raised.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. Yeah, thanks so much for that, Jonathan. I wanted to ask a question about if there's a narrative in Belgium around universal basic income as a concept, and I just wondered, you know, what the difference is in terms of thinking about social security for food in particular, and then, you know, this sort of wider narrative about, you know, a sort of more broader universal basic income that I think relating to what Ian was talking about, that sort of brings everyone up to, you know, a minimum level above the poverty line. So I just wondered if you could say anything about that, please.
Yes, thank you. It's something that that come often because it's also, let's say, a living debate here. There is one big difference which made me someone not supporting the universal income, to be transparent. If you go on the cotization and the universality, they're the same things. So you increase the salary and you give to everyone a salary, an amount of money. Is that enough or not? We were just discussing just before. But for me, the conditionality or conventionality, I don't really know how to translate it, is really making the difference to transform the food system. Because if you just increase the salary of people, they will still have the same habits. They will still use that money to go on a hard discount or on general supermarket. And that we are all captive of this agro-industry, so we cannot really escape it. So we need to put ourselves collective rules to try to escape it and try to build something sustainable. So it's, I mean, the 150 euro are not maybe a gift, not a gift, but a gain for lots of people. But it's also a constraint because it forces you to use that money on sustainable short chain and just chain. And I also always say that if the rich people in Belgium and in France were using their money to buy good food, we don't have only this part of organic production. Rich people in here, they just buy very, very bad food. They go on the supermarket that is closer to them most of the time. They buy the cheapest food they can find. Why do you buy a 2 euro salad when you can have €1 if you don't have this volunteer altruism or volunteer to change the world with your money, which is not really working? So they don't do it. So we need to force them also to use that money on short chain, and we need to force everyone to say, okay, maybe I don't have a right to my Crips Lays. Okay, I like that. I would like to consume it, but actually, if I think a bit, I would agree to put a rule on that and to say, okay, I will restrict myself on that in order to build a sustainable food system. And that's the bet that is there. If people don't want to do it, and we are still in democracy, so it won't work. But we cannot change the sustainable food system or for more sustainability. So that's the things we have to think. Rich people, they just buy very unhealthy food, and that's something very interesting. It's also denunciates the discourse that very poor people, they buy very bad food. Yes, they do, of course, but the others do also. It's sometimes just a question of focus.
That opens up a whole nother, for me, level of conversation or possibility for conversation. This is so interesting. And the idea that I'm thinking about, you know, Ian, your comment there, the farmers market nutrition program here, and part what sounds to me like you're proposing or thinking about, Jonathan, with this whole social security is not just and the universality of it, that it's not solely about helping folks, you know, the chronically, the working poor, the chronic food insecure, it's not just about increasing their capacity to buy good organic food, but it's also incentivizing everyone to invest in a sustainable food system. And for me, I guess the issues that brings up is, you know, to what degree is it individual behavior versus structural barriers, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's probably a both and one feeds the other, but I think it's certainly a super interesting, you know, a super interesting thing to watch. And I'm excited to see what comes of it, what comes of the pilot project, and what are the different things that we can learn from that. I have one question though, Jonathan, which is, what is the state of the right to food in Belgium? In other words,
you want to keep me 2 hours long here?
No. I guess what I mean is, you know, signatory, ratified, is it codified in the Constitution? Like, what are the legal frameworks that you can lean into in Belgium?
Generally, Belgium has ratified the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights.
Cultural rights, yeah.
Yes, very long time ago. And so they are supposed to apply it, but still they don't really do it, and it's not in the Constitution. So now, as FIAN, we are demanding that the right to food appear in the Constitution. They add the right to housing some years ago, and we think it could make a difference on that. Generally, they have a very restricted comprehension of the right to food, which is no one is dying from hunger, starving. Right. So we comply with the right to food. That's the way it is.
Interesting. Thank you. So I think I have to wrap up this portion because we have a few other items and announcements that we wanted to get to. Jonathan, this is so interesting, and I think this is this is really, for me, the reason that we come together in this Global Solidarity Alliance, is to really learn from each other across countries that we've been calling wealthy but unequal. And I'd love for us, kind of as a community, to think about how do we stay engaged with each other, and what could we do together that would, for instance, support and help, you know, further the work that you're doing in Belgium, just like in the Netherlands, and then, you know, here in the U.S. and Canada, we have some, you know, it's very clear to me, everything you were outlining is exactly what we're confronting in the United States and Canada, I know as well, and I believe in my conversations with Kaylee and Sabine that it's the same thing. It's this agro-industrial food system, and the way in which it is part and parcel of it's perpetuating, it's reproducing this chronic in food insecurity. And so I guess just all that to say, we sort of have the same struggles, and how do we keep connecting with each other around that? And so anyway, I just invite you to stay engaged with us, and to also think about that. And for everyone, how do we make this an action-oriented network?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're expecting an answer.
No.
Okay, yes.
No, not expecting an answer. Just really want to stay engaged, and thank you so much. It's really exciting to. Both exciting and disturbing, I guess, for me as an American, to hear about the need for these kinds of programs in countries, in Northern European countries, right? It's certainly has challenged my own assumptions about the state of social security in Northern Europe.